So when we want to create a polynomial of lowest degree, and we're given some of these restrictions, the first thing that we want to do is we want to look at these zeros that we're given here. So that means that we know that x is equal to a negative 5/6 twice, because it has a multiplicity of 2. And we know that x is equal to a 1/3 once, because it has a multiplicity of 1. When we have the zeros and we want to build back the polynomial, what we have to do is we have to set these back into their factors. Basically, what we're going to do is move everything back to the other side and get these equal to 0 again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply both sides by the denominators. So I'm going to get 6x is equal to a negative 5. And then I'm going to add the 5 to both sides. So I get 6x plus 5 is equal to 0. So in other words, this is going to look like that before we set it equal to 0 and solved it and got our x equals. Well, since we have it twice here, we know that the second one is going to be the exact same thing, because we have that multiplicity for the negative 5/6. I'm going to do the exact same thing with this x is equal to 1/3. I'll multiply both sides by 3. I'll get 3x is equal to 1. I'll subtract the 1 from both sides. I'll get 3x minus 1 is equal to 0. So this factor, 3x minus 1. So now, think about this as my polynomial being in factored format. So when I go to actually set this polynomial up, I have my f of x, and I have these 3 factors here. I have my 6x plus 5, 6x plus 5, and this 3x minus 1. Well, here's the thing. I don't know if anything is sitting here out front. So I just put an a here, and we're going to deal with that a in a few moments. Don't panic about that a. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to FOIL or distribute these two together. So I'll get 6x times 6x, which gives me a 36x squared. 6x times the 5 will give me a 30x. 5 times 6x will give me another 30x. 5 times 5 gives me a 25. I'm going to put this in parentheses because I still have to multiply this by this 3x minus 1 and by this a sitting out front. Now I'm going to clean up this middle part a little bit, simplify it. So I have a 36x squared plus a 60x plus a 25 times this 3x minus 1. I'm going to multiply those two together. So I'm going to multiply these two things together. So 36x squared times a 3x will give me a 108x to the third. 36x squared times a negative 1 will give me a negative 36x squared. A 60x times a 3x will give me a positive 180x squared. 60x times a negative 1 will give me a negative 60x. 25 times 3x will give me a positive 75x. And a 25 times a negative 1 will give me a negative 25. Again, I'm going to put that in parentheses because I still have that a sitting out front. So I will clean this mess up by combining like terms. So I get 108 x to the third, and I apologize, there should be a 180 sitting there instead of just an 18. So that's a 108 x to the third. Combine these two, I should get a positive 144 x squared. Combine these two, I should get a positive 15x minus 25. So this is f of x. Now, we were given one other stipulation. We were given that f of 0 was equal to negative 25. So we were given some other information. This is going to help us find out what our a is. So if we come down here, we know that f of 0 is equal to 25. Or was that? Oh, I'm sorry, negative 25. I was thinking, whoa, wait a minute. It's equal to a negative 25. Okay? So that means that I'm going to replace my f of x with a negative 25. And I'm going to replace all of my x's with zeros. Well, if I replace this with a 0, that all is going to go away. If I replace this with a 0, that all is going to go away. If I replace this with a 0, that all is going to go away. And I'm just left with a negative 25. Now I can solve for a. Divide both sides by a negative 25. Oh, so a is just 1. Now, if I had a different number here for my x, well, I would probably have to do a little bit more and get a different number right here. In other words, if I had f of 1, then I would plug in a 1, and I would solve it down. But in this case, I had 0, so it was really nice. It just came out to be my constant. And so now I have f of x, where my a is 1. So I replace that with a 1. So 1 doesn't really change anything. So my polynomial of lowest degree is going to be 108 x to the third plus 144 x squared. And my pen got stuck for some reason. Okay, maybe it's back. There we go. Plus a 15x minus 25. Most of the time, if you have a 0 here, it's going to be very nice. You're going to be able to set this number equal to your constant and solve for your a. But what you're basically doing is you're taking your zeros and kind of putting them back into that factored format and multiplying those back together. And then you're going to have to solve for that a given this information here. If you have other questions, let me know.